This is the revision video for the Eduqas Poetry Anthology for the poem The Soldier by Rupert Brooke. So Rupert Brooke wrote this poem at the start of the First World War. So you have to consider the context of that time and how at first there was this patriotic fervour for young men to join up. The horrors of the war hadn't really set in. Those long years in the trenches and the gas warfare and the horrific death toll hadn't really been reported. Or, lots of the major battles we think of hadn't happened at that time. So there was this great rush by young men of the country to join up and serve and do their duty. And this poem, The Soldier, it's about a soldier who imagines his death. So he thinks about, he's prepared to go into battle and he's anticipating that perhaps he will get killed in this battle. So it begins, "If I should die, think only this of me." So it is the soldier, or the poet, writing from the perspective of the soldier, imagining his death. And his own memorial. He is setting the terms of his own memorial. So if I should die, this is what I want you to think. This is what I want you to remember about me and believe about me and believe about why I died and the cause I died for. And it's a very noble idea, this idea of noble self-sacrifice, of dying for a cause, dying for your country. And you also have to think about Britain, and more specifically for this poem, England's place in the world at that time and its idea of itself. The British Empire, British imperialism is at its height. The empire stretches to every part of the globe, and lots of countries conquered by Britain as part of that empire. However, the poet says that if he dies, and if he is buried somewhere in some foreign field, so think about the use of alliteration there, no matter where that is, and obviously the foreign fields being referred to are the fields of France and Belgium, but wherever that foreign field is, it will be forever England. And the sacrifice and the death would mean so much and be so powerful that it would affect the soil, it would affect the very ground that this person is buried in. And there are obviously the kind of connotations and the language used is connected with death. So that phrase from a funeral litany, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So you kind of have that here with the connotations of earth and dust. So think about that in terms of funerals. But it's not just dust. Think about the adjectives used. It is a rich earth and a richer dust. So this soldier's death is used to enrich that land and make the land a better place. And it is a better place for him having been there, and it is a better place for him having fought there, and it is a better place for him having died there. So it's quite jingoistic, it's quite patriotic, and it is very, very specifically English. Look at the repetition of the word England, 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 and English. And England is personified as female, as the mother country, a dust whom England bore meaning to give birth to. So this country gave birth to this heroic and noble individual that sacrificed himself for the greater good of the country. And you can see again the pronoun her, referencing this personification of England. And England gave birth to him, shaped him, gave him experiences, raised him in the best possible way, made aware made patriotic, if you like, and made him aware of his place in the world. And then that kind of moves on to romanticising, idealising England, of this beautiful pastoral scene. So you have her ways to roam, the country walks, the fields, the farmlands, the hilltops, the mountains, and her flowers to love. So this beautiful landscape, and compare this beautiful landscape to the dust of this foreign field. However, by having this person from England there, it makes it a richer place, perhaps more like England. So a body of England's breathing English air. So this body, first of all, references the actual soldier himself when he was alive, because he's breathing this English air. The connotations there that English air is so much better than air anywhere else in the world. This idea of jingoism and imperialism. Washed by the rivers, blessed by the sons of home. So you have some religious connotations. Washed by the rivers has biblical connotations of being christened, of baptism. People may have experienced christenings and baptisms in church using a font, but in the biblical times, people would have been baptised in the river. And fully immersed in that river. So this soldier, this person, feels he has led a blessed life. So obviously a different spelling of blessed there, but blessed by the sons of home. No matter where this person is in the world, and the sun shines down, it is not the sun of a foreign field, it is the sun of England. So religious connotations, he's blessed, and christened, and feels blessed and proud and grateful that he is English and from England. So the second stanza, this heart, you almost have links to Richard the Lionheart, this pure heart, this warrior. All evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less give somewhere back the thoughts by England given. So this is about giving thanks to God and giving back praise to God in thanks that he is from England, and England is fighting in this war and he's proud to do so, and England are doing a good job. And it's almost a poem of encouragement. He wants other people to read this poem and be encouraged to sign up and join the war and fight in the war. And this idea, gives somewhere back the thoughts by England given. Almost a message saying, England has given you everything. England has given you life, has given birth to you, has raised you, has sustained you, has looked after you. Now it is time to give something back to England, to fight for England. And her sights and sounds, so again the natural environment, think about what you can see, think about what you can hear, and fight for that. And then the kind of the laughter learnt of friends. You hear stories at the start of the First World War about large groups of friends, or large groups of school friends or work colleagues joining up and fighting together. Obviously by the end of the war, lots of these people are killed, and you go to schools and you see these memorial boards with lists of names of boys from that school who were killed. But at the start, that wasn't known, and people saw it as being a fun time. It will all be over by Christmas. So when the poem was written at this time by Rupert Brooke, he wasn't aware of what was to come. He was still part of this patriotic idea that war was fun. It wasn't the mass slaughter of that. That last line, and it's sometimes important to focus on the last line of a poem. In hearts at peace under an English heaven. So this soldier who has died, his heart is at peace because he is proud of what he has done for his country. He's at peace because he knows he has protected England. But then you get this idea again, more religious connotations of an English heaven. And the poet has a bit of a superiority complex, thinking England is the best place in the world. But that is down to this kind of imperialist ideology that he would have been brought up with and that he would have experienced at that time. So some information about Rupert Brooke. Born in 1887, and he was educated at Cambridge University, and even before the war he was writing poems. So he was a poet before then, and then he was commissioned into the Royal Navy during World War One, and wrote these poems to encourage young men to join up. And then, crucially, he died in February 1915. So the war hadn't been going for that long, 6 months or so. So he wouldn't have experienced all of the horror of that war. If you compare that to the experiences of poets such as Wilfred Owen in Dulce et Decorum, a total contrast between the two ideologies and the two poets' experiences of war. So he died in 1915. And he caught this optimism. People were optimistic about the First World War at first. As I say, they thought it would be over before Christmas, and it would be done. And it was idealism. The people were fighting for what they believed to be right, what they believed to be good, and they thought the war would be over very, 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 very quickly. Now, Brooke presents this idealised version of England through the repetition of England, and he's not specific about any particular part of England. He comes from Rugby, but this poem is not about Rugby. It's not about Birmingham or Wolverhampton or London either. It's not about any specific place in England. It's this idea of an idealised version of England, an England of the imagination, how people would imagine England to be, this perfect place, this land of plenty, green rolling hills and a beautiful nature. It's not about the dirt and squalor and deprivation of inner city. It's about the pastoral element. So the landscape is rural, farmland, fields, mountains, and it's non-specific. It's not about anywhere in particular. And because it's a lack of identifiable places, it could be anywhere, then this poem appeals to everyone. Everyone could imagine it to be their town or their village or their farmland. And again, this idea of superiority, a richer dust, England's dust, and people from England are better than everybody else. And there is a reference to the freedoms associated with English life, which is perhaps what they are fighting for the freedom to be able to walk around wherever they want and express their own opinions, this idea of her ways to roam, and a deep sense of gratitude for the English values instilled in Brooke with the idea of the English culture. Again, talk about religious connotations, washed by the rivers and blessed by the sons of home, and this religious ritual of baptism, and he associates that with a deep love of his country and being blessed. Reinforces the idea that God or the divine and England are closely related, and that perhaps the fight, the war that's going on, the battles that are being fought are God's will, and he is enacting God's will. And it talks about the essential elements of life. So the earth, the air, the water, the sun. And he's saying all of those are English. And you get a sense that growing up English and being English are really at the core of Brooke's identity as a human. He is English through and through. So some notes on context. It catches the early optimism and the pride of 1915, especially if you contrast it with some later poems. There is a lack of vivid, realistic detail of war. perhaps because Brooke hasn't yet experienced it, but also because he wants people not to think of the horrors of war, but for the patriotic reasons to go to war. There's extreme patriotism, this idea of a sense of noble sacrifice. Dying for your country is the best thing to do. The greatest honour, the greatest sacrifice a human being can make is to die for their country. And with that theme in mind, you could contrast this poem with Dulce et decorum est, the sarcastic tone of "it is sweet and fitting to die for your country." But there's lots of idealised imagery, abstract ideas and language, so nothing specific. Themes then: death, straight away the idea of the poet being killed or dying in action. Warfare, patriotism, sacrifice, and man and the natural world. But also in this, how man and how man's death and how blood that is spilt in a foreign field can affect the environment. So man is sustained by the environment, by the English air and the English sun, and washed by the rivers, but also leaves something of himself behind when he dies. And something of that noble self-sacrifice is left behind wherever this particular person is killed. And think to the title, The Soldier. This could be any soldier. It's not a specific soldier in the First World War. It's not Brooke himself, although perhaps he is kind of anticipating his own death or own fears of death. But this poem could relate to anybody, to anybody's noble self-sacrifice in that First World War. Think about the structure. It is written in a sonnet form. Sonnets often associated with love poetry, and you could argue that this is a love poem, a love letter to England, if you like, in thanks, in gratitude. But some questions to consider. Why did the poet choose to break the poem into two stanzas? And what are the reasons behind that? What different ideas are contained in each? So in the first stanza, it is more about the country, more descriptions about this place of England. And the second stanza seems to be more about the idea of self-sacrifice, the more kind of philosophical ideas, if you like. And how are these two structures, how are these two stanzas connected? The tone of the poem, the tone of the first stanza, rests on Brooke's assurance of England as a completely fortunate and beneficial influence on her citizens. So England is the best place to be. England is the place, the country that made me what I am. The second stanza suggests that dying for England has a purifying effect. All evil sheds away, so all your sins of life are shed away because of your noble self-sacrifice, and you will go to heaven, you will go to this English heaven. And the idea of God and England going hand in hand.